The Fantastic Four's finally taken the first steps into the MCU, and we're all thinking the same thing. Is this film the much needed win for Marvel's first family, or is it proof that Fantastic Four movies are just doomed to fail? Let's get into it. Fantastic Four kicks off in the best way possible. Instead of dragging us through the usual origin story, having it take up half the runtime, we get the space mission and getting the powers in under 10 minutes, as well as a quick recap of what they've been doing since getting their abilities. Right away, you can tell this is a confident, battle-tested version of the team that's dealt with threats, saved the day on more than one occasion, and the entire world knows who they are. Marvel didn't waste time rehashing the same crap we've seen before. They've finally given us a story that treats Marvel's first family like the icons they're supposed to be, and the subtle nods to Doom throughout the movie was a nice touch, and even though he doesn't make a full appearance, his presence is there throughout. As for the tone and visuals, honestly, they were on point. Fantastic Four First Steps doesn't feel like your typical Marvel movie, especially with the universe 8 to 8 clearly being inspired by the Fantastic Four animated series, but it works. And then after Silver Surfer shows up, it becomes way more intense, less like an MCU film, and more akin to movies like Armageddon, but with superpowers. Now I have to say, the casting in this film was perfect. Pedro Pascal seems to be everywhere these days, but he plays the role of Mr. Fantastic really well. And sure, he doesn't show much in terms of his elasticity powers, but he does an amazing job showing us just how intelligent Reed is consistently throughout the movie. I'd say Vanessa Kirby's Sue Storm is probably the most comic-accurate Invisible Woman we've gotten so far. Not only in terms of powers, but the way she portrays a character when interacting with Reed. Sue clearly loves him, but there's this underlying tension and doesn't always trust his thoughts and the way he handles situations, and that push and pull between loyalty and doubt gives their relationship way more depth than we've seen in any previous Fantastic Four movie. Joseph Quinn as the Human Torch had some pretty big boots to fill. Chris Evans and Michael B. Jordan both brought their own energy to Johnny Storm, and honestly they were both great in the role. Out of the new cast, Quinn was the only one I wasn't too sure about going in, but he nailed it. His performance was spot on. He didn't try to copy what came before. Quinn completely made the role his own. He's got that classic Johnny Storm confidence and attitude, but doesn't just feel like a comedic relief character. Eben Moss-Backrack's version of The Thing is hands down the best live-action tape we've seen by miles. This isn't the usual angry, depressed rock monster. His Ben Grimm feels different in the best way. He's confident, comes to terms with who he is, he's not ashamed of how he looks, people around him aren't scared of him, and he's not isolating himself or playing the outcast. It's a lighter, more human take on The Thing, and it works. Eben brings personality, charm, and just the right amount of heart. And he still has that tough, no-nonsense attitude, but he also delivers some of the funniest and entertaining moments in the film. Paul Walter Hauser shows up a few times as Mole Man, and honestly, his scenes just fell flat in my opinion. I actually liked him in Cobra Kai. He's funny when the writing works, but here, the dialogue was just trying too hard to be funny. The jokes didn't hit, and the character never really found his place in the story. To me, Mole Man just kind of felt shoehorned in, like he was only there so he could give civilians a way to escape into Subterranea after Galactus showed up. Now, Silver Surfer's first scene in the Fantastic Four was honestly one of my favourite moments. It completely changed the tone of the film instantly. Now, I'm a big Norrin Rad fan, so when I first found out they were going with Charlotte Ball's version of the Silver Surfer, I wasn't too impressed. But to be fair, after watching the film, I actually liked the take on the character. What didn't work for me though was that moment where Johnny Storm chases her into the upper atmosphere. His flames are extinguished, and then just as he's about to freefall back to Earth, the scene just cuts to black. No explanation, no nothing. They could have at least addressed it in the next scene, but nope. As for the main antagonist Galactus, he's an absolute beast. This is the Galactus fans have been waiting for. That first scene where you see his world ship tear through a planet is just wild. Then as the Fantastic Four make their way through the ship to confront him, the details, the atmosphere and the scale was spot on. Especially as you're watching the planet being processed within his world ship. Then his first full appearance, mate. Perfectly handled. Huge presence, intimidating, but without being cartoonish, and that first scene is loaded with subtle nods to the comics. One of the best lines for me was about Sue Storm's child being destined to become the next Galactus, and as a comic fan, that got me hyped. My biggest issue with First Steps though is I think Earth 8 to 8 should have been destroyed. They built up the stakes, Galactus was shown to be unstoppable, and then he just sort of goes easy on them. He literally wields the power cosmic, and for most of the final act he's just walking around. Now, the scene where Sue Storm's pushing Galactus back into the teleporter is a crazy feat, and it's comic accurate. In the comics, she's gone up against Celestials stronger than Galactus, and what made the scene hit harder was the cost. It's not like she pushed Galactus back with ease. If it wasn't for Franklin, she'd have died, and even after that, Galactus still isn't fully stopped. He starts breaking free again, and it takes Silver Surfer's betrayal to finish the job and push him through the portal. But that's where it lost me again. The betrayal just sort of happens out of nowhere. Sure, there's a couple of scenes where she talks with Johnny about her past, but she literally destroys the teleporters, allowing Galactus to reach the planet in the first place. Then 5 minutes later, she's helping the team stop him. It just felt forced. To be honest, I think the film just needed more runtime to flesh that out and show us exactly why she betrayed Galactus, to then give that moment the emotion it deserved. Okay, so Marvel has finally brought Franklin Richards into the MCU. I honestly never thought it'd happen. For those of you who don't know, Franklin Richards is pretty much the strongest reality warper in the multiverse, able to create universes on a whim, so you know it's about to get crazy. I do have to say though, the CGI scenes with Franklin looked ridiculous. It's one of the worst CGI babies I've ever seen, and that scene where he's reaching out to Sue's body just looked weird. It's a shame too, because the CGI throughout the rest of the film for the most part was spot on. Okay, so I know what you're thinking, are the end credit scenes worth waiting around for? And the answer is yes and no. The mid-credit scene, 100% worth watching. It sets up some interesting stuff and actually adds to the bigger picture. But the post-credit scene, skip it. It doesn't add anything meaningful and it's not worth the wait, trust me. Now, my biggest gripe with the film, and yeah, this one really got to me, is that it never explains how the Fantastic Four ends up in the 616 universe, like we saw in the Thunderbolts end credit scene. I was expecting it to be addressed in the movie, or at the very least teased in the credit scenes, but nope, we get nothing. My main theory now is that Doctor Doom is going to kidnap Franklin Richards and take him to the 616 universe, and that's how the Fantastic Four end up chasing him there. But we'll have to wait and see what happens in Doomsday. Overall, Fantastic Four First Steps isn't just another reboot, it's a fresh start that actually works. It skips the overdone origin story and drops us straight into a world where Marvel's First Family is already an established, powerful and iconic team. The cast absolutely nailed it. The visuals for the most part were on point and Galactus delivered in a big way, as well as solid groundwork being laid for future stories, especially with the introduction of Franklin Richards and those subtle nods to Doom. Sure, there's some pacing issues and a few iffy moments, but this is the Fantastic Four film fans have been waiting for, and it finally gives Marvel's First Family the respect they deserve. But what about you? What are your thoughts on First Steps, and what are your Avengers Doomsday theories? Let me know down in the comments, and if you could do me a solid by liking and subscribing, it'd be much appreciated. I hope you all have a great week, and thanks for watching. Until next time peeps, stay frosty.